What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JR Takes, Offseason edition, first episode of many coming to you guys. And obviously, we went over the Chiefs. Thank God they lost the Super Bowl. But now we get to focus a little more locally on our boys in blue, as we like to call them. And I don't know how you wanted to start this episode, but I guess I'll just start by some comments I heard from our general manager earlier this week. And I don't want to blow it too out of proportion, but he did say that we have a perceived problem with our offensive line. And I don't know what your perception was this season watching the boys, but I think he's right. I did perceive that our offensive line was terrible. I perceived that we gave up 2 safeties in week 1. So, yeah.
It was almost 3, too. I remember that game. And that game, the first post I made about the Seahawks this whole season was, this is the worst offensive line I've ever seen. That was the first thing I had to say watching this team. And that didn't really change all that much throughout the year. There was a couple of decent games. The game in Arizona was a pretty strong performance, but that's not an elite defensive line that you're playing against there, not even close. And it's been the biggest problem on this team for basically the entirety of the Geno era, a good chunk of the Russ era. I mean, think back to 2019. That team had the chance to do a lot more with that season. I feel like the offensive line is a big reason why they didn't do more.
The way I look at it, we've been bad since we traded Max Unger.
More or less.
And you know what's funny about that is we traded Max Unger because we had a perceived problem in the red zone. And who did we get? Jimmy Graham. And what did he do? Next to nothing, big picture-wise. I mean, I know he had a great, his second year?
I mean, he has, all the Seahawks single-season records as a tight end. But I mean, his next competition is John Carlson in 2009.
Yeah,
what are we doing
here? He can set all the records he wants, but what I remember about that era is very little.
Yeah, I mean, it was mostly just Russ not necessarily that he wasn't developing, but I think he developed a lot more under Brian Schottenheimer than he was under the last few years of Bevel. Lynch was gone. The Legion of Boom was crumbling. I mean, it was basically just kind of that shit and not sniffing anything past the divisional round. And sadly, that's still where we are all these years later. So and as we were just saying in the last podcast, my biggest takeaway from the Eagles Super Bowl victory was how good their offensive line was and how good their defensive line was. Football is won in the trenches. It's just, I am fully big boy pilled when it comes to football after this last season. And I just think, is it easy to get 5 elite guys on either side? Not necessarily that you're going to have 5 on the defensive side, but you know what I mean? No, but I think if you develop and scout and get the right guys, it's potentially easier than finding the next fucking Patrick Mahomes, throwing all your eggs in that basket. So I hope that was just GM speech for, I know we got a problem on the line. That's kind of what I'm taking away from that. I know that the Seahawks coaching staff and scouting staff at the Senior Bowl was glued to the offensive line groups the whole weekend. So,
and it could be one of those plays with words, and maybe John Schneider is fully anticipating drafting what he perceives to be the issues with our line. And maybe he's just trying to throw people off once again, not having his focus on the things we need the focal points to be on.
That is also part of his job, too, is to keep the scent off his trail on what he's trying to do. It's all smoke and mirrors from now until April 25th, basically.
Yes, but at the end of the day, dude, everyone knows we have a horrible offensive line. So it's
But I mean, if I'm John Schneider, I want people to be thinking that I'm taking Shedeur Sanders. I want it, or Jackson Dart. I want people to have no idea what's going to happen.
Oh, man.
Just so we have some amount of perceived leverage in negotiations with these other teams.
I really hope we don't take Jackson Dart. That would suck if we did that.
Not in the fucking first round.
No.
Not really in the second either, although I think he might go day 2, honestly. I think
he would,
the
too.
more I'm getting
Given the
into
lack
this,
of quarterbacks in this draft, he's definitely going to go day 2.
I feel like, I guess, do you want to keep talking John Schneider, or do you want to just talk about
I was going to segue into Geno, since we were talking
Okay.
quarterbacks, but we could just do, what did you need to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I've started to dive into this quarterback class in a little more depth, and I've been hearing a lot throughout the season that this is a horrible quarterback class, and I will say, from what I've seen, going back to 2022 when we first started this, that was a bad quarterback class. Your best quarterback by far is Brock Purdy, and I mean, like, he's kind of already hit his ceiling, I would say. And this quarterback class, it's similar to that in the way that, like, there's not a lot of, it's not like the 2023 class where you had, you know, freak shows like Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, even Will Levis, a highly touted prospect. Cam Ward, I think, is really good. I think he's probably the only guy in this class that you would feel good about taking in the top 10. But I think it's true that, like, even a Shedeur Sanders, like, in a lot of ways, this guy is really similar to, like, Teddy Bridgewater coming out of college, who was a first-round pick, but he was a 32nd pick. And he just doesn't have the elite measurables. He doesn't have the elite anything.
Which is crazy because he's Deion's son. You would
I
think he
know.
would just be a freak athlete, but he's
Well,
not.
he is.
He's
a good
obviously,
athlete, but it's not like Deion Sanders was, 6'4", 230.
Yeah, it's not like Shadeur's athleticism is like a separation above any other quarterback that's in this draft.
He's definitely not his dad in terms of speed too, but I mean his dad was like one of one at that measurable.
For sure.
But I actually think there's a good amount of guys in this class that I think will have a chance at the next day. But I don't really think any of them, besides maybe Cam Ward, you're going to be talking about as top 10 guys in this league. And even Cam Ward, I mean, I remember 2 years ago he was potentially going to come out in the draft, and I was like, we should get him in like the 5th round, because that's where like he was projected to go in the 2023 class. Then he did another year, and another year after a transfer, and all of a sudden he might be the number 1 overall pick. Like, this guy, I mean, we got a Cougar fan right here. Hey-o. What'd you think of Cam Ward on the Cougs? He was good, but did you think, oh, this guy's going to be the number 1 pick one day?
Oh, he was like amazing for WSU.
Well, he also like was.
But then he like went to Florida or
he went to Miami.
Miami and like played elite there. So it's like he's not number 1 overall, but like.
Well, he also in the Apple Cup 2 years ago went head to head with
Penix
and almost won the game.
That's true.
He can compete with like I think anyone. Like he, you put him in that. He has ice in his veins.
Yeah, no, I've always thought he was good. I'm just kind of like, damn, he's really gonna be potentially a top 5 pick, like almost certainly a top 5 pick this year. It's not the same thing as like even like a Bryce Young, like Bryce Young. We were like, yeah, he's small, but this guy's insane. Like Cam Ward, much bigger NFL frame, but just it doesn't have that kind of pedigree. I would feel good about getting him if I were any NFL team, but
I think he's gonna go to the Browns.
You think so?
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't for his
sake.
sake.
I'm excited to like watch him.
I feel,
Like, that's
I don't know.
Really fun.
I feel like the Browns are like different than they were 10 years. Like having Kevin Stefanski as their head coach, like there's stability there. It's just the quarterback is the problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like they got a Deshaun Watson problem, and maybe they just ripped the Band-Aid off.
They just need to cut him.
They do.
That's what I'm saying. They cut him,
do.
draft Cam Ward, because you don't want him around Cam Ward.
You don't want him around anyone, especially massage therapists. So, they got to just cut that dead weight, move on, take the financial hit. Kind of like what the Broncos did with Wilson. I mean, even them, like, they have Bo Nix, and they made the playoffs this year. So
I also keep hearing, like, trade Myles Garrett and then trade part of the contract, which the Browns, I think, should do.
If you're ever going to trade Myles Garrett, this is the best time because his stock is probably at an all-time high. I mean, he could have been Defensive Player of the Year this year still, even for a bad team. But they wait a couple more years to do that, and you're going to get a third-rounder, you know? Mm-hmm. And then it's also going to be tough because he's going to want a bunch of money and yada, yada, yada. All this to say, I think if this is your year to where you want a quarterback that's going to start for you this season, not the best year. But I do think there's like 5-6 guys in this draft class, kind of similar to last year in that respect, that I think they have a chance to do something in the NFL. So it'll be really intriguing to see what we do, Seahawks, in the middle rounds, because that's where you could see them making a move, or at least that's where I would consider it. Just not at 18 for really any of them, unless somehow Cam Ward falls there. Then that'd be crazy.
Well, yeah. I'm really hoping, since we're on the topic of the draft, I mean, obviously I'm hoping we get that guard from Alabama. But Booker? Is that his name?
Yeah, Tyler Booker, I think.
But I just get really worried about that because the Cardinals draft 2 spots ahead of us, and they need a guard really bad too. So I kind of just don't think Booker is going to fall to us unless we trade up. Which I would be shocked if we did that, because that's just, given the history of what we do in the draft, that's just not something that John Schneider does.
No, but the thing is, I mean, granted, this is February 18th. We're talking here where we haven't even hit the Combine, Pro Days, yada, yada, yada. PFF currently has Tyler Booker as the 49th ranked prospect, so it's not inconceivable to think he'd even be there with our second-round pick. But there's Booker. There is Gray Zabel from NDSU. He's a tackle that he can play any position on the line. I think he would be perfect because we need a guy that can do anyone's job better outside of maybe even Abraham Lucas, considering his health. There's Armand Membu out of Missouri. He's another kind of similar situation where he's a tackle going into the draft as a tackle, but can play guard. I like having that versatility because A, guys get injured every couple of games on the line, it seems like. And B, like, I just think there's more value in that. And then Calvin Banks from Texas, he might just be a pure tackle, but there's going to be options at the top of the draft for interior O-line this year where I don't really think you could say the same about the last 2 drafts. Like, there was, a guy here or there, a couple good centers, but this is a good guard draft as far as I can tell so far. So there's no excuse not to come out of round 1, round 2 at the latest without a guard, without an interior offensive line player.
Yeah, I will be pissed if that is the case.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you have too much more to add on the draft. If you wanted to talk the Geno discussion.
I just was going to give a couple dates here. The Combine is coming up in 9 days, I believe, on February, 27th. Mm-hmm. So that, I mean, honestly, after doing this for 3 years, I kind of don't give a shit about the Combine anymore because it's just a lie. Like, nothing that they do in underwear matters all that much. Mm-hmm. Free agency is starting in just under a month on March 12th, so it'll be really interesting to see what happens this year. Not just for the Seahawks, league-wide. I mean, there's going to be some potential starting quarterbacks moving teams as free agents, which doesn't happen very often. And last of those big 3 events would be the draft itself on April 25th. So those are kind of the big bullet points that we're going to be talking about here for the next couple of months. And then after that, we have the dark 3-month period going through training camp and whatnot.
Yeah. But at least it's nice out. I feel like it's not that bad because it's like, well, there's no football, but it's like 80 degrees out every day.
Yeah, which I sure as shit would take that right now.
Yeah. But any more thoughts on the draft?
Not yet. I haven't formed them, really. But that's what we're going to be getting into here for the next 2 months, basically. So get ready. Mock Draft City is coming your way.
Yeah. I just wanted to make a quick little note. We were talking about Geno a couple episodes ago and whether or not the Hawks should extend him and how much more of Geno we're willing to I guess take before it's time to move on. And I heard Herm Edwards talk about Geno the other day, and he described, in my opinion, perfectly how Geno plays. He's the highs are super high. He's basically a polarizing player because the good Geno is elite, but the bad Geno, it's so hot and cold that you just, at least for me, I just felt like that was a perfect way to describe him. The highs are high, but the lows are Jesus, this is bad.
Yeah, I guess I agree in the sense that if you take this last year, for example, it's not that Geno had a lot of turnover-worthy plays at all. He was among the lower turnover-worthy play rates among quarterbacks. But when they happened, worst possible moment. Most gut-wrenching possible moment. And that's not something you can necessarily... Actually, I'm sure some nerd has made a impact from turnover index rating or something.
Sure.
But anyways, that's definitely kind of been true for him in the last year. But as you were saying earlier, when Geno is playing to the best of his ability and just executing the offense like he can, it is a thing of beauty. And you can convince yourself that we have a top 8-6 quarterback in the league when he's playing hot. That, I don't even think... I think a lot of people who do this professionally would agree with that statement. But as you were saying, that variance when it swings the other way, it just can't happen anymore for how long he's been playing and for what we need him to be. So it's tricky. I also just think the way people judge quarterbacks in 2025 is a little ridiculous because it's if you don't have guys playing like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, people are shitting all over them. I've read people say that Seahawks fans would hate Justin Herbert if we had him, and I think that's completely true.
I hate him now, and he's not on our team.
Well, I'm just saying he's someone that a lot of people will put in the top, echelon tier of quarterbacks.
He's the if quarterback.
He is the if man for sure. I feel like after his last playoff just implosion, I've soured on him quite a bit. But look at the way C.J. Stroud played this year. Seahawks fans would be trade him after the way he played most of the regular season. Mm-hmm. It's just fucking stupid. People's IQs drop to room temperature when they talk about the quarterback position. And so because of all this discourse, I feel like everyone is just one extreme or the other when it comes to a guy like Geno. And I'm just at the spot where I'm objectively, I think he's at best the 9th best quarterback in the league when he's playing good. And at worst, somewhere from 16 to 12. Is that actually a problem when you have the worst offensive line in the league? I don't think so. I think it's not the thing that's holding this team back. We've kind of had this conversation before, but ultimately you have to make a decision on it. And what I've heard out of John Schneider and Mike McDonald in the last few weeks really makes it sound like a Geno extension is coming. And not even, regardless of what you think about Geno, someone's got to play quarterback for this team next year. And unless you want the team to be bad, Geno is the best option, objectively, unless you could just make this a all-rookie trade in Madden and get fucking Joe Burrow. But we don't live in that world. That's not the world that exists. And so for this team to succeed, we have to clear up a lot of cap space coming into this offseason. I don't know how we got into this situation. John, what the fuck have you been doing? But we're in the New Orleans Saints territory in terms of cap space. We already made a move to clear up some cap space. I want to say it involved Leonard Williams' contract. Mm-hmm. But if we extend Geno, we can basically move a bunch of his guaranteed 2025 money into the future a little bit and help get back into the black in that regard, while also keeping him around for another year or two. Even if you extend him for a 3-year contract, you can structure it in such a way that it's a 3-year deal on paper, but it's really only a 1-year contract. We kind of did that with him last time. My thing is Gino might be like, fuck you, already played that game. Like, I want to see what I can get after this season if you're going to do that. So
I feel like he's going to want to leave. Personally.
I wouldn't blame him.
Because I don't think we're going to pay him the money he wants to be paid. And I could see him going to, like, the Raiders, for example, because I could see Pete being like, yeah, we'll pay that.
I think if negotiations don't go well, like, I could totally see that. I mean, like, from Gino's perspective, like, he's got to know a lot of the fan base hates him for, like, no reason. That would annoy me. That would make me want to play for said team's fan base. I don't really think that actually matters all that much, but, like, everyone uses social media these days, and they have eyes, so they can read what people say. But it's also like he could have made more money on other teams in the last couple of years here. It's not like, we should feel bad for a guy that's made generational wealth since 2022. Like, Gino's got to be a happy camper considering where he was just 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I think it's pretty doubtful that we get another super friendly deal. But
well, also, sorry to cut you off, but I also feel like Gino, it's like he might want more money, but I could also see him being willing to do a deal like that again. Because if you think about it, we like gave him his career. We like gave him the opportunities to, after the resume that we've seen and we knew he had coming to Seattle, and then giving him the starting role anyway. Like, I don't know about you, but when we gave him the starting job after Russ left, I thought we were going to win 2 games max.
Yeah,
so,
you can go back and listen to my thoughts on that from I hope you don't, because I was super wrong. But I wanted fucking Drew Lock to start, but that's how fucking stupid I am, and most fans are when it comes to evaluating this. But to that point, it was Pete Carroll who gave him that chance. And Pete Carroll, I think, is a big reason why he gave us a team-friendly deal in the first place. I don't know how his relationship is with Mike. It seems to be pretty good, but I kind of doubt you're going to get that sentimental loyalty factor out of him again with a new regime. Mm-hmm. Granted, a regime that seems to believe in him quite a bit and speak highly of him. But, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see. And I would bet that if the deal happens, it will probably happen before free agency begins. Not that it needs to, because he's not a free agent coming up. He's under contract. But I feel like with the moves John is going to need to make in free agency, he's not going to want to be worrying about Gino's contract going into the new league year. So that's my prediction. Maybe it doesn't happen. Sometimes these things stretch until August, and all of a sudden, when you haven't heard any NFL news for a month, a contract is signed. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have much more to add on Gino. I just wanted to bring up the thing I heard Herm Edwards say, because I was like, oh, yeah, that really is how it is. It's like we see the highs, and they're really high, and they're great, but then the lows lose us games. So
let me ask you a question, pose a hypothetical to you.
Does it involve Justin Herbert? Sorry.
Different if situation. Let's say Gino is signed to a 3-year extension tomorrow. Okay. What average money value would you be happy with? Millions per year.
35 to 40.
I think
around there.
I think that is dead on. I think if you're paying him
40, any more than 40, no. I don't feel good about.
It's a foolish decision to do that. But yeah, I mean that's kind of right in line with the Baker contract. And look at how good Baker played for Tampa. Like he's like kind of a younger Gino for how his career is.
And who wanted Baker 2.5 years ago?
Yep, that is a W for the Jonah track record. The Jimmy G is not, but we won't talk about that.
Wait, I wanted him?
Let's just not talk about it.
I don't even remember
that. It's funny you picked 35 to 40 because that's kind of my prediction of what is going to happen. And so at a certain point, as like a normal human being, I have to look at these NFL players that like balk at numbers like that. And I'm like, bro, like that is more money than people's entire families will make for several generations.
Well, I've always thought it was weird that the whole argument and like leverage for players in the NFL is this guy makes more than me and I'm better than him. Like, this is a business. I don't care. I don't care what they're doing over there. Like that's I don't know. That's always been my like outlook perspective on like NFL contracts is I think they like the way they do it is so like worrying about the other person that I just find it kind of weird.
Well, it's a infinite dick measuring contest basically.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like a business because if like Ryan gets a job as like a head engineer and then he can leverage like, oh, this head engineer makes this money, so I want to make that much money. It's the same thing.
No, I get it. I just think it's I don't know. I just think it's a little prima donna.
It's also well, you got to remember it's a big chunk of that is the players' agents because they get commission on their salary.
They're basically their lawyer, essentially.
They want to get the biggest number possible because that is for them.
And 2% of $40 million.
Yeah, but on that same note, like, look what an over-aggressive agent can do to a player's PR, i.e. Russell Wilson. Mark Rodgers is the probably biggest douche agent in the NFL. He's mostly a MLB agent. And yeah,
you're worth this much.
For whatever you think of Russ and his character, Mark Rodgers has probably single-handedly done more damage to Russell's reputation than any other person because of his negotiation tactics, which is to go to the media and just have people say shit. Like right now, have you heard about the Arthur Smith drama with him?
Not at all.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff we don't miss about him being our quarterback. We miss other things, but
what is the drama?
Just apparently that like Arthur Smith, after the Bengals game where Russell threw for like 1 billion yards and 5 touchdowns, was like, I need you to quit audibling so much. It doesn't even sound true. And it's one of those things where Mark Rodgers just having people go to the media and say shit to just bring up controversy, make Russell Wilson look like the victim. I mean, maybe I'm speculating and Russell's doing this, but I don't think so. And this is the kind of stuff you see Mark Rodgers do for other clients of his. It's effective, but at what cost,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Russ is the one pulling the strings behind that. I doubt it, but God, I mean, just hearing that, if I'm any of the 32 teams, I'm not bringing him into the locker room if that is still happening.
I know.
Like, God, what a headache.
Dude, that's why it's like, I feel like he did a lot to show that he can still play this year and clean up his reputation. But part of that is maybe you need to get a new fucking agent, dude, because this guy is like just a dick.
Yeah, you've already made your money. How about save your image?
Yeah.
And quit having this guy.
And you're already making a bunch. He's already going to make like $30 million this year.
And you're married
no
to
matter
Sierra.
What.
You don't need any more money.
Yeah, money is like
We need to take
pure
money away
ego.
from him.
Yeah.
It's a pure ego scratch. There's no need for more money when you're those type of people. So yeah, we're getting a little philosophical here, but long story short, I think Geno 30 to 40 million, nothing over. Be a good deal for the Seahawks. Be a good deal for Geno. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I'll go 42 million is my Geno cap. That's my cap. Any more than 42? I don't like 42 either, but fine.
And only 80 guaranteed over the stretch of 3 years.
Sure.
That's the real number you want to worry about.
Well, I mean, I don't have the sheets in front of me.
Yeah, we'd have to go to like spotrack.com or whatever and look at that. It's complicated.
Well, and once you start to like learn about contracts, because I learned this in playing MLB The Show. I know that the contracts with the NFL and baseball are different, but you really do like the year-to-year salary you're getting. It like increases over time as far as the MLB goes. I think that's how it goes in the NFL.
It is because the thought in mind is that the salary cap goes up every year, which it generally does. So like, a $50 million cap hit in 2027 is not nearly as bad as it is right now. So if you put that out there, then it's like we're still only using up 27.2% of our cap on Geno or whatever in that year. So you got statisticians and accountants and a whole team of people crunching the numbers on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I hope we get some sort of NFL news soon here because I'm already getting bored, even though it's been less than a couple weeks.
I already know that first week of free agency is going to be so fun because there's
yeah.
going to be so many Instagram posts of like this new player in like his old uniform, but like standing, and it's just like the Jaguars signed fucking who's some loser that is going to be a free
Christian
agent.
Kirk.
Yeah, they already did that though.
That's just what came to mind. They're always. I bet they're going to be big spenders this year.
They're going to be like
they always
breaking. The Jaguars signed Juju Smith-Schuster.
$30 million over one season.
Kadarius Toney is now the wide receiver 1.
Yeah. Yeah. For the first day of free agency is like one of the only reasons to have the Twitter app, because going to Adam Schefter's Twitter page and just refreshing is like a rush on that day.
But honestly, I don't really have too much more to add. I'm sure we'll find some more stuff to talk about as we progress further along to the off season, but that's really all I have for this one.
Yeah, and probably only another episode or two of this season 3 of JR Takes, because March 8th is the
March
calendar.
8th is the calendar turn,
and it's the first week of the league's new year, so I think it's fitting.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, anyway, thanks for stopping by, guys. Hit that subscribe button on the bottom of your screen, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yep. See you later.